Right, in this video we will look at how to install Flutter for a Windows machine. So currently I'm running a virtual machine with Windows on it, so please bear with me if it's a bit slower than usual. I'm going to click on Firefox there, and then I'm going to search for Flutter install. And this will bring you to the very first link there where I'm going to say install Flutter. And this takes me to this page with Windows, Mac OS, Linux, and Chrome OS. So we're going to go with Windows. So if you look at the system requirements there, you will see to install and run Flutter, your development environment must meet these minimum requirements. So this is operating system, Windows 7 Service Pack 1 or later. There's some disk space that they indicate. That does not include disk space for IDE tools, which we will also install at the end. And then some tools we will need. One of the first things we're going to do now is to get Git for Windows. So you can click to download the simple file, very small file to download, and when it's done, you can just click on it to start installing it. Right, and you can just go through all of the next, just say next, next, next everywhere until you get to the last part where you can actually start installing it. Right, so while it's finishing up, let's go back, and you will need to get the Flutter SDK. Now, I ran into some problems installing this Flutter SDK, and if you go to the releases page, you will see there's the different releases. So you can see that these came out now. It's now the 17th of March, and these came out on the 3rd of March, the 4th of March, and the 12th. So I ran into some problems even trying to install every single one of these on this virtual machine. But installing it on another computer, it actually worked. So it's up to you how you want to do this. I would recommend that you try and get 2.0.2, which is the newest version. So you can click on it now here to download it, or you can go and follow what I'm going to do now. So for those that's having trouble running this one, and the steps are basically exactly the same, it's just a different version of the SDK. And by the way, if you're going to use the 1.22.6, that's the one just before 2.2 or 2.0.0, we will just be upgrading this one in any case to 2.0.2. So if you do not have a bandwidth problem and you're okay with following my steps, please feel free to do so. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to download the one that just came out before 2. So it's the 1.22.6, but you can download 2.0.2 if you want. Mine did not work for me, so I'm going to show you what to do if yours are also not working for you. So it's downloading. It's quite a big file. Well, not this one. I think this one is a big file. If we save this one, you can see it's 696 megs. So if you're going to download that one, it's quite bigger, but we will upgrade to the newer one. Okay, so I'm going to go into that folder that we just downloaded, or the zip file that we just downloaded, and I'm going to right click and say extract all. Now, where do I want to extract this? I want to go to my C drive, and I want to create a new folder here called Flutter. So go and create yourself a folder called Flutter, and inside of that folder is where we will extract. So it's going to go to C Flutter. So the reason behind that is do not go into folders with a lot of spaces in, like program files and stuff like that. The SDK doesn't like that at all. And it's the same for Android Studio and Android SDK. So just make sure that you are extracting this in a folder that makes sense. So this extraction could take a while. So while we are waiting for it, let's carry on with the rest of the steps. So if we go back, after getting the Flutter SDK, you can actually just click on here if you want to use 2.0.2. Okay, so after that, we need to update our path, which we'll do after the extraction is done. We will run Flutter Doctor, and then we'll need to go with the Android Studio installation. So for now, we can start downloading Android Studio. So you're going to click on Android Studio there to start downloading the file, and just click on it, agree, and say download for Windows. Right, and then we will save it, and we can go back. Then also we'll need to go to set up an editor. So on the left, click on set up an editor, and again you will see install Android Studio, which we are currently busy doing. And then you can also see Visual Studio Code. So I'm going to use VS Code. VS Code is a lot more lightweight than Android Studio. I really love it for creating Flutter apps. So we're going to look at using Visual Studio Code and not Android Studio. So I'm going to save that file. And then we should have Visual Studio Code done, and Android Studio ID is also done. So let's just wait for this to complete. I see that this one is done, Git is installed, so we can finish, and this one is still extracting. So as soon as this one is done extracting, we will get to setting the environment variables as well as setting up Android Studio and Visual Studio Code. Right, now that the extraction is done, you can go into that folder and you'll see there's a folder called bin. So you're going to go into the bin folder and you're going to right click and say copy address as text. Now, why are we doing that? If you go to Flutter and you run Flutter console there, you will see it brings up this console for you, and you can see Flutter there, and you can even type Flutter -- version. And by typing Flutter -- version, you can see it's actually expanding some archives and doing some stuff in the background, unzipping the .SDK and so forth. So you can just wait for this to complete, and then we'll carry on with the rest of the video. Now, if you're using Flutter 2.0.2 in this virtual machine that I used, it actually did not work for me. So it gave me just the version number. It did not do anything of this downloading stuff, and this is probably because that 2.0.2 is so much bigger. It contains maybe a bit more. But I'll show you now where I ran into some errors, and then how you can fix it by using this 1.22 point something that I downloaded now. Right, and then you can see it actually gives you the version number now. They say a new version of Flutter is available. Flutter 1.22.6 stable channel. This is what I've got currently, and this is the Dart tools that I've got. And it says welcome to Flutter and so forth. So if I close this now and I go and I run cmd, open up the command prompt, and I try to enter Flutter here with the version number again, then you can see that Flutter is not recognized. So in order to use Flutter in the command line or the terminal, we'll need to go in and add some environment variables. So go to your search and enter, or just type env. Go to your system environment variables, click on it at the bottom, and you should see something that says path there. If it's not there, you can just go and say new, add path there, and paste that value. So you remember that we went to the Flutter folder there. So if you forgot there, go into bin. So it needs to be Flutter, Flutter, bin. So your bin folder looks like this. Right click and say copy address as text. And that is what I pasted here now. So if I paste again, that's the value. And then you can say OK. But if you already have the path variable there, you will just say edit, say new, and paste that value there. So in some Windows operating systems, you won't have this type of pop-up, but you'll have one line. And what you can do then is you just add a semicolon at the end of the first one, and then paste your new code after that. So this is essentially doing the same thing. You can see there, the path is the previous value with a semicolon, and then what I added. Right, and then you can say OK, and OK. Let's close this also. We need to close the console. Let's run it again. So we're going to say cmd for the command prompt. It opens up, and I'm going to say Flutter -- version. Right, and if this pops up, and I'm running 1.22.6 currently, but if that pops up, you know that your Flutter environment variable has been set up, and Android Studio and Visual Studio Code and everything will pick up Flutter. Right, so now in order for us to get to 2.0.2, we're going to run a command upgrade, or not upgrade, Flutter upgrade. Now what this will do is now get the new SDK. So for 2.0.2, it gets the newest SDK. So instead of downloading the 2.0.2 from the website like we should have done and just worked, mine did not work. So this is then the steps I needed to take. So if you're already on Flutter 2.0.2, then this step is not needed. Well, you can still run it, but it will tell you your Flutter is up to date. Right, so now you can see mine is done, and you can see it did quite a few things there, downloading a lot of things to get the Dart SDK and the Flutter SDK up to scratch. So if I run Flutter version now, I should be at version number 2.0.2. So whether you downloaded 2.0.2 and this just worked from the get-go, then it's fine. Or if you upgrade it like I did now both should give you this versioning now. And very important, this part should run. Flutter Doctor. If I run it now, you should get the following. And you can see the first check mark is there. Flutter channel stable 202 on Microsoft Windows version, whatever. Okay, so the next step we'll need to do is to get the Android stuff up and running. So we can close the console for now, and let's go to our downloads folder where we actually downloaded Android Studio. So I'm going to double click Android Studio. It could be that you need to right click and run it as an administrator. I'll see now. In most cases it's better to do it, but mine seems to work fine. Okay, so you can just go through all the steps there to install it, and you can show the details and see how far it goes. So just let it install, and then we'll carry on when it's done. Right, my installation is done, so I'm going to click on next, and I'm going to say finish to start Android Studio. We'll get back to Visual Studio Code now. So it's the first time I'm doing this. I'm not going to import any settings. I'm doing it right from scratch. Nothing else needed. Right, you can choose if you want to send some statistics to Google or not. I'm going to allow. I'm going to say next there. I'll use the standard version to install, and you can choose between the dark mode or the light mode, but we're not really going to use this editor, so it doesn't matter. And you can see it's going to download some default things, and you'll need to let it do that. It's going to take a while depending on your internet connection and the processing power of your PC, but this could take some time. So as soon as mine is done completing this, downloading all the components, we'll carry on. Right, so mine is done downloading all the components. I will just click on finish, and then it should open up Android Studio. The current version is 4.1.2. Right, so what I want to do then is to go to configure there, and we're going to go into the SDK manager. So this is where your Android SDK is, and it will tell you where to find your location. It's under C users and so forth. Okay, then under your SDK tools, let's start with that one. Get as much as you can of these tools if you've got space on your PC. So you can see that there's an update available for this one, so I'm going to tick that one. Let's get the SDK command line tools. Let's get some Google Play drivers and stuff there. You can get as much as these as you want, although it's not really needed. But I'm going to update mine to make sure that I've got some of those, and in order to accept these licenses, just click on the top one, accept it, click on this one and accept again, and say next. And that will install some few extras that will also help you to get everything up to date. Right, mine is done, so I'm going to click on finish, and then you can go to SDK platforms. So now here it's up to you what you want to take there. So I will suggest that you take from Android 8 and upwards. Take all of those. It's not really necessary to look at the rest. If you want to have or to code for a specific version, then you can go and have a look at that. But if you go to Flutter quickly, and we search for minimum Android version Flutter, and you can see that basically they say Flutter supports API version 16. So if you look at the Android API versions, Android 9 is API 28, and so it carries on. So in order to get to that minimum version that Flutter actually accepts, we're at Android 4.1. So it's really your decision on which ones you want to take, but you can support up until 4.1. That's the apps you can support. So if you want to, you can download all of those, but I would say try and get from 8 and upwards. And if there's a specific use case, you can always come back and download the rest. So I'm going to say apply there. I'm going to say OK, and it will install it for me. Right, so as soon as that is done and you are happy with what you have currently, you can also say show the package details, and if you go into every one of these, you can see there's system images with it. And these system images are basically virtual devices. So you can also choose to uninstall some of these and just get the SDK platform for everything. So that's also another option. So instead of having the system images for every single one of them, you can just go down and download, for example, the SDK platform for those specific ones that you need. Right, so that's the SDK. And if we go then to the AVD manager, you will see that you should have one already there, a virtual device. But if you want to create your own virtual device, you can click there, and you can click on phone or tablet or TV or whatever virtual device you want. And in this case, I would recommend you go with a Nexus device. So you can use the Nexus 6 there if you wanted to, but I would suggest you use a virtual device that's not got the Play Store, and then one that's also already got the Play Store. So I would say take a Nexus 5 and a Nexus 6 and set them up. So let's take the Nexus 6 for example, and if you go to next, you can see that we've got an Android 11 image available. But if you want to use something else like a Nougat or Oreo Android 8, then you can download the virtual device here. And it's quite big, some of them, so if you do not have a lot of space, only get those that actually make sense for you. So I'm going to take the one that I already have there, and I'm going to say next. And then you can see there's some setup that you can do. If you can choose the emulated performance, you can use hardware, which means it's going to be a bit faster than using just normal software. But it's up to you how you want to do this. And then you can also set some advanced settings on how big, how many RAM are you going to give this device to run on your system, and so forth. And then you can just say finish. And that creates a new device. And if you want to run it, it's not working on my virtual machine here, but if you want to run it, you can basically just click on that play button there, and that will start your virtual device, your emulator, and it will start running on your machine. Right, so mine has got some errors there, but in any case, it should work on your side, and I'll show you on my own PC later on how you can run then these and get them up and running your code on them. You can also edit them by using these edit buttons, and you can also delete them if it's not used anymore, or you don't want to have that thing running on your system and eating up your resources. Okay, so I think that's it for the Android Studio part. So let's go back to the command prompt quickly again, and let's see if Flutter Doctor is now happy about Android. Right, so now it says Android toolchain. There's not a cross there anymore, but it says some Android licenses has not been accepted. To resolve this, run Flutter Doctor. So we can do that. We can say Flutter Doctor, and then have Android licenses, and then run it. Oops, let me just change that. Right, let's run that one. And you can just say yes there, and you can accept it, and accept it, and accept it, and accept, and then run Flutter Doctor again. Android is fine, Android Studio is fine, and then you can see it's got a cross there against the Chrome there because we don't have the Chrome browser installed. Once you have Chrome installed, that will also be fine, but we're not going to create apps now for the web. We will focus on Flutter for Android. Right, so everything seems fine now. We do not have any connected devices, so if you got your own device plugged in, you should also see this as a connected device. But for the rest, we should be okay. So the next step is then to go and install Visual Studio Code. So let's go to our downloads folder again, and let's run Visual Studio Code. Right, so I'm going to say accept the agreement, say next, and next. Let's create a desktop icon also, and say next and install. Right, then we can finish, and we can launch Android or Visual Studio Code there, which will pop up this window, and we can start by just closing down that welcome screen, and let's close down that. Go to view and click on command palette, and you're going to type there install. So you'll see one option there that says extensions, install extensions. So let's choose that one, and you'll see a list of all the extensions, and we're going to type Flutter there at the top. And you can also look at some of these other Flutter extensions if you want to add them and play around with them and see how they work. But the one that we need is the one that says Flutter Support and Debugger. So it's this one, Dart Code, Flutter Support and Debugger for Visual Studio Code, and you're going to install it there. Right, so as soon as it's installed, then we can close this extension, and now we should be fine creating a new application. Right, so let's see if we can create a new one. So you're going to go to View, Command Palette, and just type Flutter there, and you can see there's a new application project. So let's click it. Here we can say yes there, but before that, let's go to the Flutter folder. You know, inside of this folder is my Flutter SDK. So let's go to the base Flutter there and just go and say new folder, and we can call it projects. And then let's go into that folder and select the folder, and let's call it Flutter application 1. That is fine, and just enter. And that will now start creating the whole Flutter project folder for you. And you can see it's going to create a whole bunch of things, and this includes the iOS language, the Android language. So you can see iOS and Android as well as web is already included into this project. And that's what we said. The nice thing about Flutter is that you can create one code base and launch it on iOS and Android. Right, and then your Flutter project is running, and you can see that it says in order to run your application, you can say Flutter run. In order to enable null safety, you can use .migrate apply changes. So I think we can do that one there for every one of our projects. So you're going to go to terminal there, and you're going to paste that. So .migrate apply changes, and if you do that, you will see it migrates your app now for null safety. Right, and when that is done, you know that your app is now ready for null safety. Let me just move this up a bit, and you can see that we are running Flutter 2.0.2. It picks up no device, so if you've got your Android virtual device running, it should pick up the device there. And in the next videos, we will start looking at how you can start building your app. This is some basic coding that was created for you, and we'll look at that and see how we can create our very first application. That's it then for this video. See you on the next one.